For those that don't know anything about Vipassana, 3 hours of the day is dedicated to what they call strong determination, periods in which you're not moving a muscle. As a former marathon runner, I ran 15 marathons over the years. My legs are very tight. My hips are very tight. They don't like to be put in one place for any long period of time. So by the third day, my back had locked up so completely that I could barely roll over in bed. And I thought I might not be able to even move. The Vipassana, 10 days of nothing, was the hardest thing I've ever done. Before I became a lawyer, I was a musician. I had to make a choice. The transition from me being a musician and being very able to share my emotion, my feeling, and my expression in that way to shutting it down completely, which is what I did when I decided to quit playing music, put it in a box, and never touched it again. And it had to be that way for me at the time because it would have been too painful otherwise. And of course now I've looked back and I know what a detriment that was to me, how much pain I stored, right? Like by shutting that down and choosing to become another person, which is what I did when I became a lawyer.
Our guest today is Jody Green, a lawyer, psychedelic activist, marathon runner, and now a Vipassana meditator. So Jody is the managing partner of the psychedelic law firm Antithesis Law and a steward of the Psychedelic Bar Association. Jody obtained her Juris Doctor magna cum laude from DePaul University College of Law, along with certificates in negotiation and sustainable capitalism and ESG from Harvard Law School and UC Berkeley School of Law. In our conversation, Jody talks about her 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat that had literally just finished a few days before recording. We also cover her life lessons from experiencing daily chronic pain, growing up as an introvert in Milwaukee, embracing her rebellious side to become a psychedelic lawyer, and how she stopped herself burning out from overwork before it was too late. Enjoy this episode of The Healing Mindset. We just did about 20 seconds of meditation just to prepare, and I'm realizing, wow, I wasn't really here. My body was somewhere else rushing, and my mind is now here with you, Jody. And you've just spent 10 days in silence meditating. So what's it like to talk, and how was 10 days of silence on the Vipassana retreat?
Well, thank you for having me here. Just, 3 days after getting out of 10 days of silence has been pretty mind-blowing, and I think incredible timing to share some great downloads from the universe. I'll have to say that the quiet part, the silence, was wonderful for me. I enjoyed that deeply. I could have kept not talking for quite a lot longer. I was actually anxious to speak again. And to interact with people was very uncomfortable for a little while, not remembering that I had to respond to things. My body was not quite expecting the physical challenge of it. And so there was a lot of physical pain. I expected more mental challenge to come out of it. Really terrible back pain, really, pain in my shoulders just from sitting in a position for such a long period of time, not being able to move. For those that don't know anything about Vipassana, 3 hours of the day is dedicated to what they call strong determination, which is periods in which you're not moving a muscle. As a former marathon runner, I ran 15 marathons over the years. My legs are very tight. My hips are very tight. They don't like to be put in one place for any, long period of time. So by the third day, my back had locked up so completely that I could barely roll over in bed. And I thought I might not be able to even move. On the 8th day, I figured it out. And the pain went away. And I figured it out by realizing that you can't figure it out mentally. You can't outthink it. You actually have to feel into it. And so eventually I realized I had to treat my body much more gently than I had been in the past. Even with stretching and trying to stretch, I was pushing too hard and too fast in too many directions. It wasn't ready for that. It was millimeter by millimeter, right? Mm-hmm. Of just feeling into, oh, how about this? And we can go a little bit farther, and this still feels safe, and letting my body know that it was safe. And finally, I was able to completely release all of the pain. And that was an incredible moment for me. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. The way you describe that as a process, kind of gradually on day 8, tuning into the body so that you were really listening to what it needed and not pushing it, and kind of letting it guide you as to what it needed. That in itself is just a beautiful experience.
I think that was one of the most profound learnings I had. And really, how often do people say, listen to your body? I do yoga, I do other things. I meditate at home, but not for long, long periods of time. And there is a difference between intellectually knowing something, and I can recite all of the things that say, listen to your body, be gentle, and then doing it and experiencing it is a completely different thing. And I think for me, it took that many days of trying the wrong thing, only to finally just let it tell me what to do. It told me what to do, right? And a lot of the times, you've done Vipassana, David, so maybe you know this, but even sitting for those long periods of time, your body will kind of pull you into a position that it likes. And I noticed that happened to me many times where I thought, oh, this is where you want to be. Okay. Right? And just not resisting. That was a big just download from the universe that I needed to just remember that I wasn't here to outthink anything. I'm very in my head as a lawyer. And so the thinking part of me is very active. And that's really what compelled me to go to do this Vipassana retreat, is to get out of my head and into my body.
The mind is phenomenal. It's an amazing, beautiful miracle of its kind of infinitude. And it can be quite a treacherous beast at times. And we'll talk about that second aspect of in a wee bit. But on Vipassana, for me, I was thinking about it just before we jumped on, Jody. What? Because I did mine a while ago, probably 20 years ago. What were some of my takeaways? Intense pain as well. There's a lot of ego, like I was trying to be enlightened and just very wise and impress people. But there was also this sense, because I experienced a lot of mental health as a young person, and in my 20s. So some of it was embracing that part of my mental health and madness. Because, as a teenager, I thought I was mad, and I did experience, madness at times. What could just loosely be termed as that. So, enlightenment and meditation and absorption in nothingness, in a sense, and the breath. There's aspects of those really being the same experience or very, very similar to each other. So it gave me a sense of appreciating my experiences with madness as a kid. And just breathing into them with a bit of gratitude and compassion as well. So that was some of my takeaway. And there's something that you wrote on LinkedIn. So Jody's amazing on LinkedIn, everyone. And you did this thing where before you left, you wrote written posts for each day of the 10 days. And on day 9 was just beautiful. So I'm going to read out what you wrote for day 9.
Please remind me, because I don't remember. Yeah.
So before you'd gone in, this is what you said about what day 9 might mean. So you said, I am learning tolerance, wisdom, and truth. I'm searching for answers in the abyss of my mind. I'm asking for absolution. I'm begging my ego to dissolve, to give me freedom and forgiveness for my imperfections. By sharing my fears and imperfections here, I hope to give permission to others to do the same. Perfect is the enemy of good. We are all broken. This is what connects us. What will my first words be, I wonder? Yeah, so just breathing into that again, Jody. What were some of your experiences with the abyss of your mind and the brokenness, and just where the mind goes and what the mind is?
I've had some challenges in my life, but notwithstanding all of them, I've been able to find my way and, for all intents and purposes, be successful, right? In the way that society might think is a success. And I've been able to do this through what I, and looking back in hindsight, say sheer will, and determination, forcing my way through, right? Like to do things. And that ego, that part that thinks it can figure everything out through its own sheer will and determination, is the part of me that is very much holding me back at this stage in my life, where I have realized that it's preventing me from finding the love and connection I have with others if I'm putting up this veil of self-reliance. During Vipassana, each day, there is a period in which each student can, if they want, to go visit the teacher and ask a question. It's about a 5-minute session, or a little longer if they like. And I hadn't done it up until that point, partly because of ego. I kept thinking, I'll be okay. I'm very uncomfortable. And I noticed a few people had chairs. I was really in pain. I thought, they must have something special. I'm not going to ask for a chair. And I waited and I waited and I waited until, like I said, I rolled over one day and I had that shooting pain from head to toe and could barely move. And I finally went and saw the teacher, and I said, I actually shared a couple of things. One was, I think I really need a chair. I can't sit for this long. It's really uncomfortable. And she said, that's fine. It's fine, of course. And, I thought maybe there was really, it was a very special thing that you had to get a chair. And she said, it's fine. I just like people to come ask. And I very voluntarily give them out, take all the cushions in the chair, make whatever seat you want. It's fine. Do whatever you need to do to make yourself comfortable. And that was really wonderful, because I'd been sitting there for 4 or 5 days going, how are these people getting a chair? And why haven't I been given a chair? Can't they see that I'm uncomfortable? And I was trying to stick it out, And so that act of asking for help, and giving in and being able to say, okay, I can't figure this out myself. I actually need to go. And that was uncomfortable for me to do that. But when it, the generosity was so freely given, that was what I needed to be able to say, oh, I don't need to do everything myself. But I also shared with her that I'd been having some challenges with another health issue, which has been plaguing me for about 7 years. I have this pain in my side. It's like a rock under my rib cage. Each time I breathe, it's sort of like a stabbing. And it's been going on for years, and I've had all the scans and all the tests and all the diets and all the acupuncture, and and nothing has really helped. And it's tragic. It's tragically depressing. Yeah. As an otherwise healthy looking person, right? It's like I kind of have this shroud of suffering that I'm holding inside. Anyway, I told the teacher that the technique of Vipassana had been very challenging for me, because for the first 3 days, all you are supposed to focus on is your breath coming out of your nose, right? The sensation of what does it feel like for the air to be coming in and out of your nostrils, right? And it's very hard for me to focus on that when each time I breathe, I have pain here.
Wow.
And I'm trying to will the pain away or hope that it will change, or, somehow something coming here will have cured me. And of course, it hadn't changed. And I was having an incredibly hard time not focusing on that. And so I told the teacher, I feel like I don't know what to do. I keep thinking about this other thing. I'm supposed to be focusing on my breath. I can't. And she said, it's okay. It's okay. There will always be something, if you're noticing it, it's okay. But you can do your best to try to focus on the breath and let that be slightly in the background. And I said I felt like I was failing, and that I burst into tears and just sobbed uncontrollably in front of the teacher at her feet.
Yeah.
And she extended my session so that I could cry with her for like 10 minutes. And, at first it was like I was holding it in. I was, again, this part of me that wants to be strong, that for a lifetime of holding in tears and wanting to be strong and wanting to be, just prevail on my own. It was something I really needed to be able to just let all of that out. And give in to the not knowing and the not having answers and the, incurable nature of the pain of our existence. So that was an incredible moment for me. And, I had a turning point a few days later. I still went through quite a lot of struggle, but the Vipassana, 10 days of nothing, was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
Of all the 15 marathons and the other things that I've done in my life, by far the hardest thing I've ever done is not move for 10 days.
Anything else around your Vipassana you want to share as a takeaway or something that you're integrating or kind of got questions around and curiosity?
What I was worried about is coming back. And, after you reach a state of equilibrium in a space where you can be quiet and structured, they create the Vipassana schedule to be incredibly difficult so that you're meditating from the moment you wake up at 4:30 in the morning until the moment you go to sleep at 9:30 or 10 at night. And that physically you're so exhausted that you can't possibly even think about doing anything else. There's no room or space for it in your mind, right? I didn't even have time to think about missing my family. I thought I would be missing people. I thought I would be lonely. I wasn't lonely. I was exhausted. I was actually just exhausted the whole time and only thinking about the technique and the experience and the being there. So the challenge now is, how do I bring that into my daily life, which is the essence of integration. If you talk about meditation or psychedelics, how do I bring these learnings back into my daily life and become less reactive to the things that are challenging? It's much easier in a retreat when everyone is quiet and there's nothing bothering you. You don't have 400 emails to read when you get back and, hundreds of text messages and LinkedIn to try to put information into and clients to worry about. So it's been hard for me. Today was actually probably the hardest day I've had coming back, of just being, feeling unsettled back in my daily life and not really liking it very much, not really liking feeling torn in a lot of directions and just wanting more stillness. So how to find the spaces for stillness within our busy lives. But I'm going to keep trying.
And then turning on the phone for the first time, like looking at the news headlines, emails, text messages, notifications. Sure. Like it's like a whole world and reality and all these emotions and thoughts and actions just roll out of this piece of technology that we love. Like in normal life, it's just part of our extended, body and consciousness, but when we're separate to it.
Coming out of Vipassana, everything was so vibrant, that afterglow kind of thing from a mushroom experience that you just see like, wow, I never noticed that the trees, leaves were quite so beautiful, right? Or all of a sudden I'm seeing the hummingbirds that I would have missed before, just all of these little tiny objects and details that were lost to me before because I was in my head, and not here. So I'm just so grateful for that, to be able to be reconnected to presence in the same way that, the medicine can work on us. We can do it through meditation too.
Yeah, and there is something very psychedelic around what you're saying in the Vipassana. Just you keep coming back to the breath. Really, you keep coming back to this moment and presence. Like how much of our day are we actually present? Like actually in this moment, maybe not doing anything, but just truly being connected and aware, emerged into life itself. It's really hard to do that.
It is very hard. Yeah.
So you just mentioned psychedelics, so we can definitely open up that, beautiful box.
The Pandora's box.
Yeah. What's inside her, I wonder? Because you're a psychedelic lawyer. Yeah. So I'm wondering, which came first for you as a passion or area of interest, psychedelics or law?
Good question. The chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah.
The psychedelics came first for me. Early on, actually. I was, before I became a lawyer, I was a musician. And I had to make a choice. I was studying with the principal flutist of the Milwaukee Symphony when I was in 8th grade. And I was told, you need to decide right now if you want to do this for the rest of your life because you have a talent. And I decided that I wanted to do that. At that age, I didn't know anything different, and I was passionate and focused, and I viewed myself as an artist, and I wanted to do all the things that artists did. And I had read a book about Albert Hoffman's discovery of LSD, and I was so intrigued by why the government would ban this substance. So yeah, I had a few experiences at a pretty young age, more than a handful, recreationally, that, at that time I had no knowledge of the science, really around psychedelics and the healing potential that they have. But I certainly did know that they could expand the realms of what we can see and understand, and found that to be incredibly transformative. And I'm just a very curious person in general, right? And so throughout, the history of my life, I've experimented with a lot of methods of expanding consciousness and challenging my body, like the marathon running and other things like that. How do we push ourselves and unlock our potential in ways that we, otherwise wouldn't expect? So that's always been my mindset, I should say, until I decided to go to law school, at which point I painted myself into a little box that I thought, we're going to actually try to conform to society for a period of time. I'm not sure. I was at a place in my life at that time feeling a little bit lost and kind of untethered. And I thought, okay, structure, right? Like, let's try it their way. And we'll follow all the rules and we'll do things right, and I'll become a lawyer, and there won't be any more psychedelics in my life. And and I wasn't concerned about that. I had done my time and seen the things I thought I needed to see, and figured I would follow the rules and, climb the ladder, and did all of that until I reached a point where I once again realized that that wasn't life for me. Mm-hmm. Being a corporate lawyer and, climbing a ladder to partnership, up the ranks, right? Like, there's a certain point at which I think a lot of people who do that realize we're on a treadmill and we're not sure why, and we're not sure how to get off anymore. And that's how I felt at the point where I was really having a breaking point of burnout. You asked me before we got on about burnout, and I can talk about that too. I know I'm going a little off topic, but it's all related. Really is.
There's a lot there, Jody. I want to first ask about 8th grade. And that question, like, when I was in 8th grade, I didn't have to make any decisions like that about who I wanted to be when I grew up. So what happened? Like, how did you make that decision around being a flautist? But also, what happened with you and your flute? Like, before we jump into being a lawyer and burnout, what happened with that relationship?
I was in love with music from as young as I can remember. I'll start it by saying that. And I remember this only because my mom has told me the story of when I was in 4th or 5th grade, or maybe younger than that. I went to a Lutheran school where we had services every day, and there was a choir. Or before I was at the school, I would go to the church and there was a choir. And I told my mom, I want to go to that school because I want to be in the choir. And the choir was all the students. So I ended up going to the school, and then, became part of the choir, decided I wanted to learn piano. And I grew up in a very kind of blue collar household in a tiny farm town in Wisconsin. We didn't have a lot of money. My mom was really young when I was born. And piano lessons, that wasn't really, it was a lot to ask. And I said, I'll give up. You don't have to give me a Christmas present or birthday present for the rest of my life. Please just give me piano lessons. And so that compelled her, and she gave me piano lessons, and I studied piano for a while. And then at my school in, I think it was 5th grade, they give you the option to choose an instrument. And they bring someone in to come play all the instruments, right? And they play a little tune on each one. And I don't remember why, but I picked the flute, probably because it's a very girly thing. And at the time it was, I don't know, connected to that. And yeah, for whatever reason, it just clicked very easily for me. And I now, as an adult looking back, doing a lot of my own work to unpack things, I think I can understand why. I think that, as a young person, I was quiet. Was born an introvert, which means I am highly reactive to things in a way that people who are not introverts are. Introversion isn't just about being shy. It's actually, you are more reactive to situations. And I was made fun of, for being quiet, and I was made to feel not part of a thing, right? And I didn't feel able to express myself. I did a lot of listening and absorbing and thinking before I speak. And I think music was my gateway to share my emotions and my language without putting it into words. And so that was a place where I felt safe. So it was an easy choice for me that, very quickly I moved up to a point where I was studying with the principal flutist in Milwaukee Symphony, and which was, I don't know, I don't even know how that happened. Thinking back, I don't know how that happened, that I even was able to audition to be with her. But yeah, she saw talent and said, I think the reason the question came up, you need to decide now if you want to do this, was because I was also, I wanted to play volleyball. And I was a setter. And as a setter, you're using your fingers a lot, right? And she said, you can't go to volleyball camp because we can't have you hurt your fingers. Yeah. You need to decide right now if this is something you really want to do. If you're going to do it, you have to be serious, right? That means giving up other things. And so, yeah, it was not a hard decision for me to make.
Maybe the next jumping off point, Jody, you're becoming a lawyer, and it checked off a lot of boxes, I'm hearing you basically saying. But there was a bit of a dark side to it, around getting entrenched in the workload, I guess. And is that where breakdown and kind of that challenge came in?
Yeah, and I won't go on and on about it, but to say that the transition from me being a musician and being very able to share my emotion, my feeling, and my expression in that way, to shutting it down completely, which is what I did when I decided to quit playing music. I put it in a box and never touched it again. And it had to be that way for me at the time because it would have been too painful otherwise. And of course, now I've looked back and I know what a detriment that was to me. And how much pain I stored, right? By shutting that down and choosing to become another person, which is what I did when I became a lawyer. It was to literally say, I'm going to recreate myself into a version that seems more acceptable to society. I'd been a rebel my whole life, breaking all the rules. And so I thought, I'm unhappy. I couldn't find my way after quitting music. I just kept floundering and just trying different things, and nothing was really feeling meaningful or purposeful. And so I thought, okay, well, you can write. You like to write. Take the LSAT, and if you get an okay score and you get into school, just go to law school, do all the things. And that worked for me for a while because I was able to achieve. And that made me feel good. The part of me that needed to be reassured that I could be valuable and that I felt I had purpose in life, right? And that purpose was outward serving purpose, though, right? It wasn't because it made me happy. It was because other people were recognizing that I was capable, and that felt good. And it took quite a long time for me to realize that trying to make other people happy does not make you happy. It did not make me happy. It made me miserable because what I was doing was putting on a version of myself which was not true. I was smart enough to be able to conform in a way that I knew would work. And I kind of was fooling everyone into thinking that I was playing this part very well. But yeah, when all the wheels come off, not that I had a breakdown, but I had a moment of reckoning where I realized that I really was unhappy.
Yeah.
And that a change had to be made. And with all the gratitude and love in the world, I have to say that it is my husband was the one who brought it to my attention and said, "You're not present." And that really correlates to what we're talking about here with Vipassana, which is all about presence, he said to me. And it was some point during COVID before we'd been married and moved in together. And he said, "You're not even present when you're not working." And that's like, it's like etched into my mind, hearing that voice telling me that. And it was just so painful to hear that from someone I loved. He told me that because he saw me hurting, and he said, "I think your job is killing you."
Wow.
Because I was having all these physical symptoms, and also just I was reactive and chaotic and angry and, panicking, constantly anxious, waking up in the middle of the night, not sleeping. And I just thought I could barrel my way through it, just the way that you run through the wall in a marathon, right? Like, I know that I can do that, right? I can physically do that. I can mentally do that. I am fortitude. And that's what I was telling myself. This is your pain to bear. I didn't think I was hurting anyone else around me, but I was. You don't hold that stuff inside and not have other people feel it. It reverberates. So yeah, I finally got the message I needed from someone who was not afraid to tell me, for my own good and for our relationship, that, something needed to change. And that's when everything started changing for the better.
I love that you received that message and the role your husband played. What happened next then, Jody? So what were some of the, practical or kind of internal changes that unfolded from that moment?
I had been a partner at a law firm, and, that's a demanding job. It requires a lot of hours, a lot of focus, a lot of responsibility, and a lot of giving up of yourself to serve others, whether or not you agree with their motivations. I didn't really have a lot of autonomy in the work that I was doing or the clients that I had to serve. Even, if I didn't agree with the work that I was doing or the positions I had to take, I was doing it because it was my job. And every day I was telling myself that, the work is intellectually stimulating, is what I would tell myself. I would get up and it's like, look in the mirror and say, "You like your job. This is intellectually satisfying work," in order to convince myself to show up and keep doing it. But what I started doing was, figuring out the way out, right? Like, my fear, and the reason I didn't change jobs or do anything about it for such a long time, was that I was, had a niche specialty. I was an insurance coverage lawyer, and I litigated big, massive cases, and I didn't know what else I would do. And so I just thought, I'm stuck. I'm just trapped. But I wasn't. That was just a story that I was telling myself that, like, we all have skills, we can find another way to use them. And so I left the firm, joined another firm, decided I would focus more on cannabis law, something that interests me. At the time, there was no psychedelic law firms, really, whenever that was. Maybe there were, but I wasn't aware of it. So I thought cannabis law is something I care about. I believe in plants. I believe in, First Amendment rights and access, to healing substances. So let's do this work. I did that for a while, and, it was still a larger firm, and the change wasn't big enough, right, for me to really feel it. I still didn't have like the balance and the freedom, really, that I think I needed. And it was around that time that there was more research and discussion around psychedelics. And I thought to myself, I have to figure out how to get involved with psychedelic law. I'm not sure how, because as lawyers, ethically, I can be disbarred for talking about doing illegal things,
Right.
which I just did on this podcast. So, we'll see. But, and I can't counsel clients to break the law, right? I can't tell them how to do illegal things. But what I can do is advocate for changing the law, talk about how to interpret the law, and provide people with guidance about forming companies that are doing things that don't involve furnishing illegal substances. So, coaching, therapy, integration, media, ancillary services, education, harm reduction. Like, that's all. There's lots of people doing great work in those spaces. I can help those people. And so I set my mind to doing the work, and that's inevitably what I did when I founded my law firm last year. Just said, I'm going to hope for the best here. And did not really do any promotion, didn't really even make an announcement about the firm until very recently. But people kept finding me. And that's how it happens, I guess, right? Just word of mouth.
What's the name
People
of your
find
firm
me.
that you started, Jody?
Antithesis Law.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I love that name.
Yeah.
First of all, just thanks for sharing with so much authenticity. That's one of the main takeaways I have from you and in life. And I think that's part of your magic is,
Oh,
I think it's part of your process as well. Like you spoke about introversion, being younger and, leaving that more corporate law role, like what else can I do? I'm stuck. And it feels like authenticity has been this continual kind of hook or kind of guiding energy that's just helped you take the next step. And so antithesis, I love that word.
yeah.
I'd love to hear, what does it mean to you? What does that represent?
To me, it felt like going back to my roots. I talked earlier about, my younger years were sort of rebellious and exploratory and engaging in my curiosity in a really unhinged way. And that I gave all of that up when I decided to become a lawyer for the first 7 years of it. It was just becoming a new identity. And so to me, antithesis was coming back to my roots of doing things differently, seeing things from a different angle, not the norm. So yeah, it's pretty meaningful for me to be doing things differently and working with people who share that ethos, which are most, if not all, of my clients. They are people who are doing things differently, who are charting their own path, who are entrepreneurs, who are, willing to take big risks to do something they love and that they care about deeply. And that makes me feel so deeply passionate and moved to be able to support that ecosystem. It makes me feel like I am actually doing something meaningful. And for a long time, when I became a lawyer, or, when I reached the point at which I decided I'm not sure I should do this anymore, I thought, I don't know if I can even do anything in the law and still feel authentic. Speaking of authenticity, right? Like this job, it makes me feel inauthentic in a lot of ways, or did for a long time. Now I can be a whole person and talk about the things I care about and do the work that I care about while still using the knowledge that I gained throughout the years of practicing. So I'm very grateful for that. It's been really an incredible journey the last couple of years of getting to this point. Really hard, I don't want to make it sound like it was like this easy, I made a choice and then, miraculously I had a law firm where I had clients where I could earn a living. It was like there were moments of I don't have a single client and I might not make an income of any kind, like that was very scary for me to just take the chance of I might fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that the risk that you took in starting that business and just that leap of faith. And I think, I love the idea that there's thesis, there's antithesis, and then there's synthesis that helps to find, the middle ground. And I think generally in life, we always want synthesis. And I also love that word. And there's a cool psychedelic company called Synthesis. So no
Yeah.
disrespect to them or the word of synthesis, but I actually think right now we need more antithesis in our world. I think we've become just very complacent, and there's just a tendency to move to this kind of safe ground of what is normal, and almost like of retreating into safety or oblivion. And I think antithesis is this edgy, kind of disruptive, shake the snow globe, something new is evolving, phoenix is rising from the flames. It's a different energy, and I think we need that. We need this edge to kind of just burst through our own consciousness, perhaps, but also on a collective level to ask some profound questions that take us into a new reality.
I do love synthesis. And obviously, the coming together of disparate parts of ourselves is really important, right? And, but yeah, I would have launched the firm if I didn't agree with you on the idea of antithesis and the need for that as well. I've had some struggles this year, I'll say, with when or not to speak out and to speak my mind in an authentic way, particularly too on social media. As you mentioned earlier, I post a lot on LinkedIn. It's become a platform for me to share things that I've been able to really connect with people, people I don't know, people from all over the world, who have found, certain things that I say that just resonate. And it shocks me every time because I never know, right? You never know what you're going to put out there that is going to stick with someone. But the guiding theme for all of the ones that did get a lot of notice and attention were the posts that I was the most vulnerable, and the most willing to share what I felt ashamed about and afraid of. Because people want to see leaders failing. They want to see people who are seemingly high achievers, like, getting it wrong too, so that everyone else knows it's okay, right? Like, we need a lot more of that kind of vulnerability. And I think that is the antithesis of the norm, which is just driving us towards homogenous society. Like, we have AI that's going to rewrite all of our things so that it all sounds the same. That makes me really sad.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we need to have voices, and we need to just share. We need to be able to share without fear our feelings and opinions about things. I really believe that.
Yeah, and there's a part of this as well, beautifully said, Jody, around not pretending to always be okay and always be like on A game. Like, it's okay to not be okay. Like, we're quite messy, complicated, people with, life is very volatile each day. So I think it's really important to own that and like not pretend that like we're these like machines who are always happy, always productive, always got our shit together. Like, we don't.
No,
No,
we don't.
Let's be grown up about this. We don't.
No. Yeah. And I think it's so beautiful. I don't know what it is to me about just being okay with being a mess sometimes and being able to share that. Probably because I held myself in such rigidity for so long that now that I feel like I am out of the closet as a human again, that I just want to be able to say it all and to say it without shame, and to realize that, oh, actually, when you tell people that you're afraid to get up on stage, it clicks with them too. I mean, there's countless people in this world that have stage fright. That was one of the posts that it just kind of went viral, where I said, I'm an introvert and I almost throw up every time I get on stage, and I speak at conferences all the time. I over prepare. I get really nervous no matter what I do. I went to court, for years and years and years, and I just got sick every time. It was terrible. It's like one of those things you never quite shake.
Yeah.
You can go up on stage and crush it, but like the moment before, you're turning bright red and throwing up.
Really feels like you're holding yourself accountable to authenticity as part of your healing journey, and also as part of your message to the world around just truth and showing up, and it's okay to be real and not perfect.
That's the message I'm trying to sell.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to sell anything, that's the message I'm trying to sell to, like we have it within ourselves to be authentic, and that is the source of connection that we have with other people. It isn't by showing how perfect we are. Nobody cares.
And usually it means we have to shake ourselves up and any limiting beliefs around how we have defined ourselves or our expectations of who I am, what I can do in life. An absolute joy. Thank you so much. Before we say toodaloo, just tell folks where they should go to find out more about you and your work.
Well, you can go to my website at antithesis.law, or you can find me on LinkedIn as Jody Green Lawyer, or on Instagram as The Real Jody Green, and it's JODIGREEN.
Yeah, and thanks so much for bringing that authenticity.
Thank you.
God bless everyone. Take care.
Thanks again for watching, and thanks to our sponsor, MAPA Minds, a network of next-generation mental health clinics offering Spravato and ketamine treatment for depression. Go to mapaminds.com for more information.